Hi, it's Miss Kane, and today we have a fashion design challenge. I have a book that I wanted to read to you first called Fancy Party Gowns. It's the story of fashion designer Anne Cole Lowe. She's a personal favorite of mine because she was born in Clayton, Alabama, and that's where I lived when I was really little until I was about 3. The book is written by Deborah Blumenthal and it's illustrated by Laura Freeman. So this is Fancy Party Gowns. It's a true story about a fashion designer who's from Alabama. When she was old enough to thread a needle, Anne Cole Lowe's mama and grandmama taught her how to sew. Wisps of cloth would fall from their work tables like confetti, and Anne would scoop them up and turn them into flowers as bright as roses in the garden. Anne's family came from Alabama. Her great-grandma had been a slave, so her family knew about working hard just to get by. Anne also knew that doing what you love could set your spirit free. So that's what she did, working near her mama in the family shop, making glorious dresses for women who went to fancy parties. But when Anne was 16, death stole her mama away, and there was no one to take care of her anymore, and no one to make dresses. The Alabama's governor's wife was waiting her gowns. Anne thought about what she could do, not what she couldn't change. So she sat down and sewed the dresses herself, and then stood up and ran the business. In 1916, Anne got a job sewing dresses for a woman in Florida. A year later, the woman sent her to design school in New York. Anne was a good student and a fast learner. But it was 1917, and Anne had to study in a separate classroom all alone because she was African American and life wasn't fair. That didn't stop Anne. She kept on making extravagant gowns, and year after year, more and more women wanted to wear them. Elegant dresses, party gowns, no two alike. I feel so happy when I'm making clothes that I could just jump up and down with joy, she said. Finally, Anne saved enough money to open a salon of her own in Manhattan. She had big bills to pay and sometimes not enough money to pay them. That didn't stop her. When Anne saw obstacles, she thought about what she could do, not what she couldn't change. One day, Anne got a special order. A lady in Washington, D.C. was marrying a senator. 7 years later, this man, John F. Kennedy, would become president of the United States. Anne bought 50 yards of the finest ivory silk taffeta and trimmings to go with it. For months, she cut and sewed. The gowns had wide bouffant skirts and pleated bands with tiny wax flowers. Anne also made all of the dresses for the wedding party. Then, just 10 days before the wedding, Anne opened the door of her workroom. No, she cried. A pipe had burst and water had gushed everywhere, flooding everything. 10 of the 16 gowns were destroyed. Anne thought about what she could do, not what she couldn't change. She bought more fabric and trim and hired others to help. She lost money instead of earning it. In just 8 days and 8 nights, Anne and her team remade all of the dresses. But when Anne brought the gowns to the mansion in Newport, Rhode Island, where the wedding reception would take place, the butler who opened the door told her she'd have to use the back entrance that was meant for workers. Anne said if she had to enter through the back door, the bride and the bridesmaids wouldn't be wearing her dresses for the wedding. She entered through the front door. The day of the wedding, all of the world saw the future First Lady of the United States, Jackie Kennedy, in her magnificent gown, and her bridesmaids were dressed in blush pink silk. Hardly anyone knew something more important, the name of the woman who'd created all these gowns, despite the odds. Why? Because Anne Cole Lowe was African American and life wasn't fair. That didn't stop Anne. Famous women wore her gowns in big galas and on television. I like to hear about it, said Anne, the oohs and ahs when they come into the ballroom. Anne didn't make fine clothes to get rich or famous. She made them, she said, to prove that she could become a major fashion designer. Slowly, Anne got the recognition she deserved. In 1961, she was named the official couture to honor her for her 33 Cinderella gowns she designed for a fancy ball in Omaha, Nebraska. After so long, Anne stood up before fashion's biggest names, head held high, and they applauded her. Okay, and that's the end of the story. So she did finally get recognized for all of her beautiful work, and it's such a good story. I like that it says so many times that she focused on what she could do, not what she couldn't change. So we are gonna create a superhero costume is our challenge today, and you're going to get to use the materials that you have at home. Our I can statement is I can use available materials to design a superhero costume. So you can use anything that you have because we're going to focus on what we've got at home. If you've got crayons, you can use crayons. If you've got markers, you could use paint if you have paint, and don't worry if you don't have any of those things. You could also use scraps of paper. If you have any newspapers or magazines, you can cut out some of the prints and then use those designs to glue or just lay on top of your superhero design. Another idea is to look for things in nature. So you could use leaves or flowers or any material that you can find. I will provide you with a fashion design template that's provided in a link. And if you don't have access to print that, that's okay. You could draw your own figure or use a coloring book page or something that already has a figure on it. So I'm going to pause my video for a little bit and I'm going to create a few examples that I'll share with you. Okay, so I finished 2 examples using the template, which was the file that I shared. This is a child's figure, so it could be used for a girl or a boy. So I did a boy example and a girl example designing a superhero costume. So on the first one, for the boy example, I used crayon, and so I just drew directly on top of the template. And I have my superhero costume from the side, the front, and the back. And then when I did girl, I used a marker and I just drew on top of the template, and I drew it from the side, the front, and the back. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can use whatever you have access to because we're going to use what we have available. Another quick example or idea is to cut out things or use found objects. So I had a catalog that I just cut part of the print of this dress off, and I'm going to use that for my superhero's top. And then I'll use the leaves that I found from our front yard to design a skirt. And I could glue these on or just lay them on top. It's not important that it's permanent, but I would like for you to share what you create with me. Again, you can use any material you would like because our I can statement is I can use available materials to design a superhero costume. You can use the templates and print them at home, or you can just draw your own figure or use a figure that you already have if it existed on something that you have printed in a coloring book. Thank you so much, and I cannot wait to see what you create. You can share it in the comments below, or you can email it to me at amkuhn@auburnschools.org. Thanks. Bye.